dancer, dance. Go hypno dance, go hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, dance. Go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dancer, dance, dance. Go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer.
I don't want to hear you say I will go another way. Should I go or should I stay? If I have to go away, this will go another way. Cannot let you slip away.
Hypno dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer.
I just try to find my way through whatever come what may. I will do it anyway. It's just little game we play. It feels good to get away. There is nothing else to say.
Hypno dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance. Hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer. Dance, go hypno dance, go hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, go hypno dance, go hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dancer, dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, go hypno dance, dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dancer, dance, hypno dance, hypno dance, go hypno dance.